Well, hopefully we're getting familiar with this process now. And remember what the first stage was. So the first stage is about anything which was memorable or meaningful for you in what you saw. Okay, we're going to start with Sochalocha, Nea's production that was directed by Tefo. And I'd like to hear any responses. It can be a moment, an image. Yeah.
I think the letter that the prisoner wrote to his uncle on was memorable because it is personal and they had to read it out, but it was memorable.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Yeah, I really like the ending. It was a good way to end off your play. Well done on that.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
Yeah, I love the romantic silence.
The romantic.
Romantic silence.
Ah, the romantic. Okay, very nice, yes. Yeah, what else was memorable for you? Yeah, Natalie?
What was very striking and memorable for me was the use of space, the staging. So we were very clear of the different worlds without any set to indicate it.
Okay. Yeah?
What also stood out for me was the fact that they were using a different language that I don't understand, but I can understand what was happening at the same time.
Okay.
And that came out quite, it's like another culture that you're also sort of exposed to, and it was, just very uplifting to know.
Ah, great. Thank you for that. Yeah?
The officer, the relationship between the officer and the prisoner, especially on the letter issue there, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Yes?
I wanted to say that.
Oh, you want to say the same thing? Okay, well, then we've got two people who responded to that. Okay, good. Anything else that you want to highlight or point out? Something that you... Yes, Jen?
Just a really strong protagonist.
A really strong protagonist, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an important subject matter that is totally relevant to youth, the idea of freedom and what society does with those who are incarcerated. I think it was a necessary subject matter.
Yeah?
I think it was fantastic. I was glued to it.
So can I ask you just to expand that a little bit? What do you think about it made you glued to it? What was it that kept you so...
It was like, I don't know, just in general, like, I don't know, I can just explain it.
Okay, it's fine, yeah? Yeah,
yeah, there was a very interesting game that was being played between the prison guard and Jacob, and I mean at no point were the stakes dropped. So the relationship was cleared, was very clear. You know, as much as Jacob was the prisoner, there were status shifts throughout the relationship, which for me was very interesting to watch.
Okay, good, yeah?
I liked it when they didn't read through every time they literally they said it, so you could see the emotions and stuff. So I liked it all the time.
Okay, so it was memorable for you because of the level at which they were able to handle the reading. Yeah, very nice. Yes?
Just back to the letter moment, what was really memorable for me was that moment when the prison warder realized that the prisoner was lying for him, to protect him. It was a very touching moment for me.
Yes?
I love the balance between prisoner and the officer. To me, it was like real, because the officer was that powerful, you know.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I really liked the way everything was set up, like the knocking on the chairs and the background voice when the guy reading the letter. That added more effect to the play.
Right, so some of the sort of theatrical elements were being used in it. Yeah, good.
Just the characterization, the subtext, the undercurrents between the different characters came out very strongly.
Great. Okay, so let's get to the second stage, which is what are the questions you would like to ask of the audience? What are the things you'd like to know from them about what they received?
Dumela. Hello. I just want to ask, let me start with the high school kids. The ending where Jacob is finally released and he reunites with his long lost love. Did you appreciate that happy ending, or would you have probably maybe preferred a different kind of ending where, you know, she actually realizes that this is a bad idea and then she just, like, I thought I can handle seeing you again, but I can't, and then she just totally walks off. So, yeah.
Who'd like to respond to that? Yeah?
I would say that I would have liked it if she walked off, because as we see, like in real life, and especially in my community, like when your family members are in jail, and then you, not only the person in prison has to like reconcile with them, but then like the family also like has to decide if whether to forgive them or not. And that ending was, for me, it wasn't realistic for me because of like of how I see my society where I live. So I would have appreciated it if like it was more realistic, as to the point of which like she finds it harder, like not to forgive the first time she saw him after that long period, but then maybe like if she went back like a few times, then found it in her heart like to forgive him.
Right. Thank you for that. We're going to go here and then up there.
I appreciated the ending because it was nice and it teaches you a model. You keep fighting, and if you're determined, in the end you get what you want. So I liked it.
Thank you. That was too much of a happy ending.
Too much of a happy ending.
Just like, I mean, your life sucks, to be honest. And I mean, nothing is that easy in your life. So it's basically just too much of a happy ending.
Okay.
I appreciated the ending because it showed the strength of love.
Okay, strength of love. Okay, up at the top and then over here.
Yeah, I actually really like the ending because it's not all happy, because at first she was having regrets about it. So basically it was like a really perfect way to end off the play.
So you felt like the sort of more complex than just a happy ending?
Yeah, like a 50-50 in between.
Okay.
I think it should have like taken more time for her to forgive him, not just like easily and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with my brother here. It was yeah, very complex, because at surface level they were saying something, but then there was, like what the lady said earlier, there was a level of regret and awkwardness, because, you know, there were certain things being said, but the emotions behind it were, so it was very tricky, and it could have gone one of two ways. So that for me was really interesting.
So for you, even though it appeared to be a happy ending, it wasn't completely resolved. I mean, there were still questions as to what might happen in the next moment. Or... Okay, do you have any other questions?
No, not now.
Therefore, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
In terms of the age, okay, I'd just like to know just roughly what age do you think Jacob was? And whether he was in an adult prison or a juvenile, just from what you saw.
I'm going to say I was in the juvenile prison because they called, first they called him a baby, and then earlier they said he changed from a baby to a toddler, so I'm rating he's about 17, 18 or so in a juvenile prison.
Anybody else want to give an opinion on that one? What was your impression of what you saw? No opinions? Yeah?
I think he was still a teenager, something like 19 to 20, you know.
So young adult. So would it be? I mean, if he's 19, 20, then it would have been an adult prison, right? So he's young, but in a young adult prison environment. Okay.
It was because of sentence, wasn't that he was in there for 5 years already. So can only be an adult, surely, if you've been in jail for that long. But a young adult, 20s, I would say.
And what is age, just for a young audience, I'm just trying to gauge with the younger audience, if it was an adult prison and you saw him as older, would it affect how you related with the story? And how? It's like, just get a better understanding. Something that we did grapple with throughout the process. Just, so if you can just tell us just roughly, if he was older, how would it affect you differently?
Yeah, I'd say it would have affected us more, like, because it showed how long he was in prison for. He was in, like, five years, right? So basically it means that he's been there for a while, so he hasn't had, like, time to shave himself properly and everything like that.
I'd just like to point out that often in the prison system, you end up in the adult prison sometimes when you're quite young. Just because of the amount of juveniles, they just, people slip through the cracks, they end up in the adult prisons, you know, so it can happen that a young person or younger person can end up in the adult prison.
I wanted to ask, I mean, I'm assuming, is this prison in Botswana?
Yes.
So if it's in Botswana, are there, you know, what would the context be there in terms of a juvenile prison or an adult prison?
Prison, okay, I've only visited like prison once, and it was, I'm not sure if it was, I think it was max, because even the visitation is not like, you know, open space like I'm close to who I'm visiting. Like there's literally like a heavy sort of fence like on my side, and then there's like a huge space in between where the guard is literally in between you guys, and you are literally talking to the other person like this over the guard. And then on top of that, there's no privacy. Like right next to me is another person visiting the other loved one. So we're constantly that screaming match of trying to get as much out in terms of our visitation and stuff. So our prison, yeah, basically that's just, I haven't been to a juvenile prison in Botswana, but the adult one is, I think it's like that. Like it's more harsh in terms of privacy. There is no privacy at all, and the conditions are very, very harsh. They walk barefoot even in winter. So
yeah, in Botswana they actually just have prison, so you never actually see the difference. And I think it's also a money thing. There's a few situations where they try to rehabilitate those who are younger, but it's, as you're saying, you end up in the prison, and that's more a financial thing, that the prisons, they are prisons. There's ways in which they'll try you in terms of your age, but once you are convicted, it's prison. Within the prisons, they might have different ways of dealing with the different ages, but yeah.
Okay, interesting. Any other questions you'd like to ask the audience? Okay, so any questions you'd like to ask the director, the writer, or maybe the actors? Yes?
I'd like to ask the writer what age group you had in mind for the audience.
Teenagers over the age of 16, that was my starting, yeah.
Yeah?
At the end, what was the relationship between the girl and the prisoner? Were they family or were they dating?
Let me just reveal. She is his ex-wife. He went to prison because, ex-girlfriend. Okay, in the proper version, they're actually sort of like young, like a married couple, young married couple. So she actually, in the past, she cheated on him, and he caught them during the act, and he almost killed the person that she was cheating with. That's why he was imprisoned. So it's that whole process of, even for her at the end, it's sort of like some sort of redemption, you know, just the idea of being given a second chance again. So yeah, and the love that they shared, obviously you could tell what it was. It's quite deep, even though there's a lot of scars. So I just basically just wanted to capture just the depth of the affection for each other. Yeah.
Yeah?
I wanted to ask whether his guilt or innocence played any part in the story.
His guilt is sort of, okay, it had some sort of impact, but what I was really trying to capture is the obvious fact that each and every single person makes mistakes. No one is perfect. And you find that people that, you know, their sins are made public knowledge, they're the ones who find it the hardest to be forgiven and being accepted once more in society. So yes, he is guilty for almost taking another person's life. But at the same time, you know, just because he's in prison, whatnot, another person who's free also has some sort of sins that they carry around themselves. And so I was just basically trying to capture that, you know what, no one is perfect, but when you fight for something and you want the process of forgiveness and redeeming yourself, like it's quite something that, and second chances as well as a whole is something that is very, very important. You know, people should just stop hanging on to mistakes and judging people and just learn to, you know what, it happened, let's try and move on. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Sure. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Montelefa, you look like you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking, your intentions to set this play in prison, I'm not sure if I get them clear. Were you looking at how teenagers are being treated by officers in prison, or were you just looking at what, like, I'm not sure. I don't know, perhaps I might be lost. Help me out there.
Just to also frame something else, that was a section that was chosen. So there's also certain choices that were from the script itself. You can't show everything. So it actually carries on. There's also his existence outside of prison. So there's also more to the actual play itself. It's just showing a section of it. So just to also add that to when you're thinking about overall, what is the intention, what was shown. But yeah.
Do you want to speak to that at all?
No.
Okay. No. Any other questions that you've got? Do you want to know what happens in the end? If the play carries on? Yeah?
The two loves at the end, what happens? Do they stay together, or do they end up to take a separate path?
They don't part. They are trying to work it out because they used to be in a relationship. So now it's that process of, let's see if we can come to. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to then offering opinions. So if you would like to offer an opinion about something in particular, feel free to do so. Just say what it is that you'd like to offer the opinion on, yeah?
Sorry, no, it's not an opinion, it's a question.
Yeah.
The guy's name is Vuyo. Is
yes.
Okay.
Right, okay. Opinions. Any opinions you'd like to share? Yeah, Loreko?
I think it's an opinion on the characters that I saw. I think I found it particularly stunning, the roles that the inmate and the warder, is it the warder? Officer, yeah. I thought it was quite, I thought the parts of the play where it really shined was in their communication. And I'm wondering if maybe it's possible to, if maybe the large scope of the play explores them. But I found it really, a lot got out of the treasure chest from their communication together. So.
An opinion about anything else? Any aspect of the play? A moment of the play? Nothing? Yes, Kat, yeah.
I don't know if this is common. I'd like to offer an opinion on the use of Setswana. Can we get more? Can we get more? I don't know if it's part of the script and was translated for the purposes of the performance, but I would like to have more Setswana in the exchanges to locate it.
That's something I can speak back to. So there is more Setswana. Obviously, the biggest challenge is now working with the actors, group actors. So even those who could speak Setswana to Setswana, not Setswana, so it became a bit of a challenge that we worked with. And I asked the guys that know to make it, to really capture the characters. Because one of the things I told her that I, as a director, I'll focus more on is the relationships. So to really assist the actors and the actress with the performance, I was like, no, if you can shift it to Tswana, but mainly between the uncle and Jacob. Because they're so close, just to show their relationship. And then in other parts, then they go more for the English. Yeah, but in the script, it is a lot of Tswana, quite a bit.
I'd like to ask that the cast feels free to offer opinions as well, because you know those are really valuable opinions. You've been working with the text for a whole week, so if you have an opinion on the text or on a part of the play that you really either enjoyed playing or you had questions about, we'd love to hear that as well. So don't feel like just because you were in it you can't have an opinion. Okay. Are there any opinions from that group or from anybody else? Yeah?
I really like, or opinion about form, for content, form, something.
Content, form, which one?
One of them.
Okay, content and form, what did you hear?
No. I liked the thing that we didn't know how to categorize this guy. I mean, I liked him, you know, the protagonist, but we didn't know, is he guilty, is he not guilty, you know, we didn't know the backstory, and then he gets together with his ex. And again, you know, there's this ambivalence, is there going to be forgiveness, isn't there? And we don't know the backstory. So I was pleased to hear that that wasn't the end, that we've got these big questions hanging. And I don't know whether the beginning was the actual beginning of the play, or was there a bit before the beginning of this section?
Yeah, it begins like that. There's a lot that happens in this play, like a lot more characters as well. Like his parents are also in the play, and the girl's parents are also in it. So basically, after the releases, he's going to also involve the other people in his life as well. So no, it doesn't end there, but it does begin. It begins on him being on the brink of trying to get a meeting with this godfather who has the power to grant him parole. You know, he's done his time, and now he's, you know, they're delaying him unnecessarily. So it's not to a point where when you know that, okay, I've done my punishment, now it's time for me to really get out, but they're delaying me. So I did it on purpose just to start it like that.
Yeah?
You want to say something?
Yeah, I have an opinion.
Why did you write this play? I know there's an intention in the play, obviously, but there's something else that happened before that. So why choose a play about this particular subject? Why did you write it?
Yeah, there's a lot, actually. Like, I'm a person that is inspired by almost anything that I hear. And just being a Motswana, I know the experiences that I go through personally at home. And this whole thing of people just judging. So I came across, there was this story about this, just a prisoner, who is struggling to find work because of his criminal record. Like, you can have all the degrees, but once you make that mistake, it's hard for you to move forward. So, and also pairing it with the fact that I personally believe in giving people second chances, because I've done things in my life where, I'm actually shocked that this person forgave me for this. So yeah, it was just for me, just sort of like a therapeutic thing, but then I started to think, maybe I can turn this into a play.
Thank you. Tefo, you wanted to give an opinion? Yes.
Yeah, because you mentioned the thing of the actors.
Yes, you can.
So I'd like to give an opinion to the actors based on their process.
Happy to hear an opinion? Where are you? Where are the actors?
They're good too.
Seems like it.
One of the things that, and I'm glad it came out, that the subtext, the characters themselves, the emotional journey, and also the thing of them learning their lines and trying to push beyond. I really challenge them to connect with the emotion. What's the subtext? What's underneath? And it's something that as young actors and performers, well, I struggled when I was younger to connect with it. So I really would like to share that they worked very hard. They took on the challenge, and not once when I set the bar high for them did they actually be like, but sir, let's, or actually push, because I also challenged them to not make it, to really get to the challenge and the conflict that the characters go through, which sometimes in terms of performance can seem boring, not as entertaining or engaging, but they took it on. So that's something I'd like to just share in terms of the performers.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
So, last thoughts, moving forward, how would you like to move forward with this piece? And what do you think are you able to take away with you from the process?
What I'm gonna take away right now is just the fact that you guys actually, even though there was some bits in Setswana, the fact that you can still sort of understand what's going on and feel the emotion. Like, it makes me feel like, you know what, I actually did something right, and I feel like other people need to see it even more, like properly, like the full version of it, because there is a lot that goes on in this piece, a lot. So basically that's my intention, to see if I can take this to a lot of young people, because they need to understand that, okay, I can make mistakes, but maybe there's a hope that I can be forgiven, move forward and be accepted, because it's important. I feel like everyone wants to be part of a community, part of a society, and when you feel that you're constantly going to be judged, it's scary, but I'm also offering the fact that but it is possible. You can be forgiven. You can have a second chance, and you can go on about your life, like leave the past where it is. So yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna have to.
Thank you. Okay, so now going to Sweet Poison. So what was memorable, what was meaningful for you in Sweet Poison? Any moments, any aspects of this? Yes, definitely.
For me, definitely that Ronald character, his patience, and it's something that people don't realize the reality of it. That there's a lot of guys who, the player, the bad boy and so on, but they can be very patient to get what they want. And that's something that's never usually shown. It's thought of, no, it's because the girl was easy, that's why. Nah, the real criminals, the players, the bad boys, they take their time to work at it. So that for me really stuck out. I'm like, yep. I know the employee boys, that's how they work it. So for me, then he really worked it.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
What really struck me was the knowledge that this was a play written in Nigeria, and when I was looking at it, I saw a classroom in Cape Town. It felt so universal and so comfortably a story I recognized, and that for me, that so much part of that was the staging. I just saw this classroom, and it was really peopled and came alive so beautifully.
Thank you. Yes.
Nikita was playing hard to get.
Angelina was HIV, and that maybe like most people in the class were like HIV positive. Maybe not.
I missed the end of what you said.
We're HIV positive.
Right, yes.
Yeah, and when Nikki was being a bad influence to a friend,
Okay, was that something that you recognized?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, yeah?
I enjoyed the part where the learners reacted in a certain way of the conversation they had.
So that's the feeling of everybody being engaged and listening and, yeah, almost sort of eavesdropping on other people's conversations. And yeah, great. Yeah, Loreko?
I think it took me back in time where, when I was still in school and I used to envy the male character. I think you achieved, I think you achieved that tone, that idea that, oh my gosh, I used to want to be this guy.
The player reminded me of my friend Mr. there.
Okay.
students. I mean, it is typical. There's one thing that I didn't, I won't call it not like.
Okay, so don't talk about it then right now. So if it was memorable,
okay, memorable is this, is that, now that's what I liked.
Sorry. Think about it, rephrase it, maybe it comes back as an opinion, yeah?
The most memorable moment for me was when the teacher turned upstage. Because you didn't have to say much, it was just such a loaded moment.
Yeah. Good, yes, Leah?
I think the memorable thing for me was just the fear associated with HIV. Like as soon as you heard it and then the shock, and then on stage the teacher literally just, I thought he was actually like trying to vomit out just the thought of this, so yeah, it was quite, yeah.
Yes?
Nikki was provoking Nikita to go out to that thing, the rich boy. Yeah, it didn't work out. It did work out, but badly.
But badly, right. And that's what stuck out for you. Yeah. Yes.
Actually, tying on to what she was saying, it's just this whole concept of choices and teenagers and how they can be bullied into going into a certain direction.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Up at the top, and then we're coming back here, and then we're going up there, yeah? The irony of the doctor's name. Remind us?
Dixon.
Dixon.
I think what stood out for me was like the way they were not informed about HIV properly. So when the one says, I could have it, and then everyone moves away like, whoa. Yeah. And it's yeah.
Okay, yeah. Good. Yes.
What stood out for me was how everybody didn't want to be involved in that. The minute trouble comes, everyone wants to check, I'm not okay, this does not apply to me.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
What I found memorable was the recontextualizing of what sharing needles can be. So the shared needle in, fixing your hairpiece as opposed to what a lot of people tend to think is just, drug use. So that was super memorable for me.
Yeah.
A different type of transmission.
Yeah, great. Very good, yeah.
I think what I found memorable was how you brought out the influence of peers, because we see where, is it Vicky? Says she's been brought up well and her mother told her, to remain a virgin, and it shows that she's been brought up well, but then her friends still influence her at the end of the day. So it showed how friends influence people in everyday life.
Thank you. Okay, yes, one more.
So just on that, on that point, what was lovely and memorable, it wasn't just AIDS kills you, you'll die. What was involved in the story as well, there were lovely levels that actually brought you to the message and the dangers of HIV and AIDS. It wasn't a lecture. It was a story that you could engage on many levels. So yeah.
The part that I find memorable is the part whereby the two lovers were sitting facing each other, talking, and the crew was sitting behind them. They were like staring at them, and when that guy was like, and they were all like. Yeah, that's so.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I like Nikita's crying because it shows real emotion and it woke me up.
Also how actions were used instead of words, like where we didn't have to see certain scenes, but then because of the reactions, certain things we were able to tell what actually happened.
Right.
Yeah, like the crying showed us that she had been deflowered, but then we didn't need to see that scene. And then also the doctor, we didn't see that he was there with the girl, but then we were able to talk.
That's great, very nice. Yeah. Okay, so now it's your turn to ask some questions. What are the things you'd like to ask your audience?
Okay. I'd like to ask if the title of the play is Sweet Poison. I want to ask the young audience, can you relate the title to the subject matter?
Yeah, at the top, yeah.
I can actually relate to it because like I think the sweet poison was Ronald because he was like the one just like go over and just flirting with all the other girls, and Nikita didn't want to believe in what was nonsense.
I think it does because when you think about sweetness, it actually refers to love because many people actually take love as sweetness and poison as the HIV and the sickness.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a very good title because it's basically it shows that sweet talk from a guy to a girl can lead a girl into the wrong thing.
Situation, yeah. Great. Do you have any questions, Alex?
Yeah. What was everyone's read on Ronald? Like, what did people? Did you think he was only in there for one reason?
There's a lot of nodding, but let's hear from some people who are going to do more than nod, yeah?
I say yes because Ronald was like, he only wanted one thing for the girls, and that was the virginity, because like one person said here, virginity is not the pride anymore, and yeah, so Ronald was going all after Vicky, so yeah.
Okay. Anybody else, yeah?
Maybe he was like angry with himself for getting HIV, so he wanted to share it with someone else. That
I thought he actually was really in love with that girl. I thought that, I had a sense that he did have some, he might have been a player, but he did have some genuine, the way it was played, I think he had some genuine feeling for her.
That's right. Okay, that's interesting. So yes, Tefo?
I also agree that there were bits where I felt he was genuine, but also listening to everything else about him, the passing, yeah, he's from a well-off family, but I found a sense of this is an ambitious guy. Like, no matter what, he has this drive, as much as it may be misplaced, but he had a drive, he pushed, he did well at school, he still had his fun, was a popular, cool guy, and so there was a lot of ambition from him, and maybe that's why he got so many girls.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so what questions do you have for the director, the writer, or the actors? Yes.
Was the teacher one of the people who slept with the HIV character?
Yes.
Sure. So that's why was I.
Yeah.
Can I give the background of, for instance, the Heaven situation?
Yes.
So there's a couple of scenes you don't obviously see, but one that might be really interesting is that there's this scene with a very high-class sex worker called Heaven, and she's talking to Dr. Dixon. It's like the second or third scene. And obviously he's trying to convince her not to use a condom, because she says you can't tango unless you're wearing protection, and he's trying to convince her, and then he eventually convinces her. But the next guy to show up after he comes out is Ronald. So there's a lot of network. The sexual network is a big aspect of the play. So yeah, so for instance, just want to kind of like give a bit of detail on that.
Yes?
Dr. Dixon walk away and run and vomit and stuff.
Yes.
He was scared that after he heard that Angelina had HIV, he believed that because he slept with Angelina as well, he believed that he had HIV too.
Yes, question here?
Was it your intention to bring up the topic of HIV as a surprise? Because for me, I thought, well, when I heard about the topic, I did not think of HIV like in any way. But then when they were at the hospital scene, and then like they were talking about Angelina, and then like the HIV thing came as a bomb to me because I was not expecting it in any way. So was it your intention to actually bring it up like that?
Yes. The intention was to shock the young audience that you're free to choose, and HIV/AIDS could be one of the consequences of your choices.
Yeah.
Do the classmates know about the teacher and like do they know that he slept with? No, they don't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Do we ever get introduced to Angelina, and if not, first question. Angelina, throughout the story, do we get introduced to her?
Angelina was that character that was...
Okay.
Yeah.
She played the boy the next... Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Got you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Okay. Is the title of the play Sweet Poison because the guy his love is deceitful, or because the guy is HIV positive?
The title is because sex is sweet, and but the way and manner or time that you indulge in it could make it to become poisonous.
Okay, sorry but my problem is, my problem is...
It's not a question, and Sarah, for your opinions, okay?
My question is why you choose to sort of interface the teenager and adult world of involving Dr. Dixon. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. Why you choose to make sure that those worlds cross over rather than allowing this to feel like a problem that can just be amongst teens, or a problem that can be interfered with by adults, whether that's supposed to be scary or comforting, or that was actually.
I deliberately put that because where I come from, it's a daily occurrence. I teach in a school and I see lecturers who are predators. And I also see students, male or female, who willingly offer themselves, to teach us. So it happens.
In our world too.
And I'd like to kind of reiterate that for myself. It really highlights the depth and the height of that sexual network. That it isn't simply isolated to a specific group. That as soon as that group starts to become and proliferate in sexual partners, that proliferation has incredibly far-reaching implications, and to the people that you might desperately not expect it to, and especially to Dr. Dixon, who's in a position of power and is in a position of and is in a higher has control, and someone we're supposed to look up to, supposed to be some sort of moral figurehead in this societal structure. So yeah, just my thought.
Okay, great. So let's go to opinion now. So if you have an opinion, remember you're going to offer your opinion by first of all saying what your opinion is about. Okay, so if you'd like to offer an opinion, yeah, so far.
I'd like to offer an opinion just on the factual content.
Okay, are you happy to take it on? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's just that I don't know if it was in the script, and Kat touched on it in terms of needles. There's also a danger, especially when it comes to information about HIV and AIDS, that it does become specific and clear. Even in rehearsing it, that it is said clearly, so it's not misinformation. Because let's say with the needle thing, my understanding is that also when it makes contact with, let's say, the air, the environment, then the actual cells themselves die. So that the needle, they actually mean that you're using full on and it gets injected. So, and then I heard a mention of clips and so on. So I was like, clippers. No, in terms of how, in which instance. Because the other problem with it, this is just personal opinion again, is that what happens is there's a danger. You're informing people, but others now will be like, they hear that someone has AIDS and you live in the same space. And suddenly now it's like, you don't share clippers with me, you don't, do you get what I mean? And then a comb, let's say a comb that has steel in you, I'm not going to share this comb with you. So that's a thing I'm sharing as an opinion, that in terms of certain information like that, which is factual regarding AIDS, sometimes it's counterproductive. So just to be aware of that, that it's clear.
Which is why we said sterilized sharp objects. Because it's actually, well, teaching people to protect themselves by sterilizing such objects if they need to share.
Can I clarify?
Yes.
I'm not doubting the sterilizing,
Yes.
but how it's used sometimes. So I was using the example of clippers.
Okay.
So if I share nail clippers with someone, or cutting hair,
Yeah.
going to the barber and so on, and even if it's at home, and that through that, it's very rare unless you full on, there's a cut and blood, and it actually has direct contact. That's specific information, but just to be clear about it, that because it may cause, it's the use of it, not the actual sterile, that now people may think that, oh, wait a minute, I hear so-and-so's got AIDS.
I get you.
Everything they touch, I'm going to sterilize. But it's how they use it, and you don't want to add to the stigma. You really don't. It's a huge problem with the stigma, that people suddenly now think, I can't live with a person who has AIDS. That's where the problem now, let's say in the same school, and you hear and people disclose, now people don't want to engage in any way with this person. Oh, please borrow me a nail clippers, please borrow me this for my hair. It adds to, so just how it's used, that's what I mean by the clarification.
Okay, we're going to have three more opinions, and then we must close. So Kat, and then Ginger, and then...
I guess this is a common question because I realize that...
Okay, but before you...
Yes. It's a common question on what or how you expect this to be performed. We take it. Because I realize that we haven't discussed whether or not it's a play that you would then stage to promote dialogue or have a Q&A afterwards, or if it's, oh, let's go to the theater, I watch Sweet Poison, then I leave and I don't get to, for example, you know, the points about sterilization, that could be what then the moderator says, okay, what did you see in the play that you know is not true? Or is it community development, community theater, a title I hate, or is it come to the theater, pay, you know, 120 bucks and then go home and have dinner kind of theater?
I haven't really given that a thought, but I believe that opportunities would present themselves for the appropriate categories where the play could be performed. Yeah.
I mean, I think just to add on to what Kat's saying, the advantage of having some sort of a framing around a piece like this is that, you know, characters don't necessarily need to speak the truth on stage. You know, I mean, theatre is not made interesting by a whole lot of facts, however true they may be. But if you've got a space in which you can unpack what has happened on the stage, that gives you more license sometimes to be more theatrical in the theatre space, but then to have the conversation afterwards that is the necessary conversation to have about the facts. And hopefully you've got curiosity going enough and interest going enough that that conversation becomes, you know, really memorable and engaging. So it may be something to think about in terms of how you take the piece forward. Okay. You know, how do you frame it? Or do you want it to be a standalone performance? Khadija?
In terms of I don't know. I mean,
are you happy to hear something about the piece?
Yes, I don't know if it's that, but it's the first thing that's sprung into my mind. It's always very, very amusing to me when there are issues around HIV and STDs and people scream abstinence. Because it is, for me, it's extremely unrealistic to expect abstinence, really. Yeah. So that's the one thing. The second thing is we always choose the loose girl to spread things. And the thing about that is then, it stigmatizes a certain kind of person and other people think they're fine. Because they go to church on a Sunday and because they sit with their legs pretty closed and they only sleep with one person. Okay. So no, I'm not saying, I'm just saying that I find that a little bit dangerous sometimes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she could have come back and she could have comforted whoever else could have been HIV positive and said, you know what?
Exactly.
I know how to handle this. Let me tell you, this is what you need to do. You need to use condoms, but condoms are not 100%, blah, 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 blah.
Me in the play, the play ends with it being a scare, it being a hysteria. And actually the only person who does have HIV is Ronald. And everyone else, because Angelina is sick and eventually collapses from illness, everyone starts to become hysterical about it because of that stigma of loose girl. She's loose. She must be HIV positive. Although I think we understand and we read that reading and we will apply it to the text.
Yes, last one.
Especially the character Ronald, because you know. Want to be dropout, who just want to be all rapper and all that stuff. So how could you make a top student be a player?
Were you a top student, Alex?
I think it's, I don't know, I'm comparing to.
Because there are students like that. I've seen them, lots of them. Exceptionally good, sound, and they are players. An irresistible combination. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, for you, some last thoughts on where you want to go with this, or what has been interesting for you? What will you take away from this process, from both of you?
I am definitely going to revamp the script, and I might reduce the cast and make them more emotionally involved in the process. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And for you, Alex?
I think I'm going to take away the kind of experience of working with the students, with the learners, and under the circumstances, and hopefully take away the kind of the experience of collaborating with Toss and talking about the script and like figuring it out on the floor with the learners.
Fantastic. Yes, Jacqueline has a yes.
Once you close the talk,
okay, well let's give them a round of applause.
I would like all the adults to stand, please. And I would like you to give a rousing hand of applause to these extraordinary young people who have been so engaged and so wonderful.